The order has been given. 20,000 sailors and Marines, 2 carrier strike groups, amphibious assault ships loaded with F-35s, Ospreys, and attack helicopters. The largest naval force assembled in a decade. All of it pointed at 21 miles of water. This is not a patrol. This is not a drill. This is the United States military sending one message, in the clearest language it knows: the Strait of Hormuz will reopen. The question is whether Tehran gets to decide how. Here is what Iran currently controls: 21 miles of open water between the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. At its narrowest point, 21 miles. That's it. That's the choke point through which 21% of the world's entire oil supply passes every single day. Over $1.2 trillion in annual global trade moves through that corridor. When Iran mined it, and they did mine it, they didn't just block a shipping lane. They held a gun to the head of the global economy. But here is what changed. Just hours after a US-Iran ceasefire was signed, Israel launched a missile strike on Beirut, targeting one of Hezbollah's main operational and command centers. The Israelis were not bound by the American agreement, and the timing destroyed the fragile balance that had just been established. Iran's response was immediate. Tehran announced the reclosure of the strait to commercial shipping. The IRGC went further. They published what they called a staganogram, an image-based map distributed through official Iranian military channels, showing a red zone drawn directly across the Strait of Hormuz. That red zone, according to the IRGC, marked the waters where naval mines had been laid during the course of the war. The zone cut straight across the corridor that oil tankers had been preparing to use. The message to every tanker captain in the world was simple: enter this water, and you risk hitting a mine. The strait was not just closed, it was weaponized. Let me walk you through exactly what the United States has put into position, because the scale of this deployment is something that hasn't been seen in years. Already in the Arabian Sea, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group. It has been running continuous reconnaissance operations, surveillance drones, and ship-based radar tracking Iranian activity in the strait around the clock. Every fishing vessel, every fast attack boat, every movement out of Iranian ports, all of it fed back to Fleet Command in real time. Also already in the theater, the USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group. Now moving to join them, the USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group, a Wasp-class amphibious assault ship that departed San Diego in mid-March, currently operating in waters near Pearl Harbor with its escort ships USS Portland and USS Comstock. On board, approximately 2,500 Marines from the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters, MV-22B Ospreys, AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters, and still crossing the Atlantic, the USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group, departed Naval Station Norfolk on March 31st. Over 5,000 sailors, 3 destroyers, expected in theater in approximately 3 weeks. When both groups arrive and join the forces already in position, the total U.S. naval personnel concentrated around Iran will exceed 20,000 sailors and Marines. That is on top of the 40,000 to 50,000 American troops already stationed at bases across the Middle East. Total American force assembling around the Iranian theater, climbing well past 70,000 personnel. The ceasefire did not pause any of it. Not a single ship turned around. This isn't just a show of force. Every element of this deployment is a specific signal, and Tehran knows how to read it. Carrier strike groups project air power at range. They are offensive platforms. Their presence says, "We can strike your territory, your infrastructure, your military assets, from international waters, without warning." Amphibious ready groups mean something different. Marines, landing craft, air-ground task forces. Their presence says something the carriers alone do not. We are prepared to put boots on the ground. The combination of both, carriers and amphibious groups, in the same theater at the same time, puts 3 options on the table for Tehran. Option 1. Iran cooperates with mine-clearing operations, withdraws its escort fee corridor, and reopens the strait to free commercial transit. The ceasefire holds. The force eventually draws down. Option 2. Iran refuses, and the standoff continues. Economic pressure intensifies. Every day the Strait stays mined is another day the world energy market bleeds, and another day Iran absorbs the cost of that confrontation. Option 3. The shooting resumes. And as chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Caney said publicly on April 8, the ceasefire is a pause, nothing more. American forces are ready to resume combat operations if Iran does not move toward a negotiated settlement. President Trump has not softened that message. He continues to state publicly, the Strait must be fully open. No tanker will be controlled by IRGC escort. No commercial shipping will pay Iranian transit fees. Those terms are non-negotiable. Now, let's be clear about something. Iran is not standing in front of an open door with no cards to play. The IRGC controls the coastal high ground along the northern shore of the Strait. They have anti-ship missiles, the Nor, the Qadr, positioned in hardened sites overlooking the shipping lanes. They have fast attack boat swarms, small, quick, difficult to track, capable of swarming a larger vessel before it can respond effectively. They have Houthi proxy forces in Yemen who have already demonstrated the ability to target commercial shipping and naval vessels at range. And they have the mines, dozens of them, possibly more, laid during the war under cover of what looked like ordinary fishing activity. That last point is the most operationally critical right now. Intelligence from the USS Abraham Lincoln has flagged a significant and troubling shift in the last several hours. The number of Iranian fishing vessels operating in the Strait has increased several times over. Surveillance drones and ship-based radars are tracking dozens of small boats moving out of Iranian ports into the shipping lanes. The problem is obvious. Some of those boats are civilian fishermen. Some are not. The IRGC has been using fishing vessels as mine-laying platforms for weeks, loading naval mines onto ordinary-looking fishing boats and dropping them into the Strait under cover of normal maritime activity. The U.S. Navy cannot ban Iranian fishing boats from operating in their own territorial waters. Fishing is a legitimate civilian activity. Blocking it unilaterally would itself be an act of war, one that would immediately collapse the ceasefire. So the IRGC is exploiting exactly that constraint. More boats, more ambiguity, more mines going into the water that nobody can definitively stop in real time. And here is Iran's core strategic logic. A mined strait combined with the alternative corridor through Iranian territorial waters past Lurak Island gives Tehran everything it wants simultaneously. Full leverage over global oil traffic. A direct revenue stream from tanker escort fees paid directly to the IRGC. And political control over every government on Earth that needs its energy supplies to move. The probability that Iran voluntarily cooperates in clearing its own mines, surrendering all of that leverage, is extremely low. The fleet is in position. The ultimatum is clear. But reopening the Strait of Hormuz is not decided at sea. It is decided in the next 72 hours, in Tehran, in Washington, and in Beijing, because there is a third player in this that most coverage is missing entirely. China depends on Hormuz more than almost any other country on Earth. A significant portion of China's oil imports move through that corridor. A prolonged closure does not just damage Western economies, it directly threatens Chinese energy security. And China has leverage over Tehran that Washington does not. If Beijing decides the cost of a closed strait is too high, if Chinese diplomatic pressure lands in Tehran alongside the American military pressure, Iran's calculation changes. The IRGC does not want to fight the United States Navy and lose Chinese economic support simultaneously. But if Beijing stays quiet, if China decides to absorb the disruption or even quietly benefits from the chaos, then Iran has more room to hold its position. That is the variable nobody has resolved yet. That is what the next 72 hours will clarify. What we know right now, both sides are not standing down. The IRGC is actively reinforcing its control over the strait, publishing red zone maps, increasing fishing vessel traffic, refusing to pull back. The United States is not pulling back either. More forces are moving in, not out. The carrier strike groups are in position or nearly there. The amphibious groups are loaded. The situation does not look like it is moving toward a peaceful resolution. It looks like both sides are digging in, and the pressure is building on both ends at the same time. Everything is accelerating. Nothing is winding down. Let me leave you with the three scenarios the Pentagon is almost certainly wargaming right now. Scenario 1. Diplomatic resolution. Iran enters negotiations, agrees to a mine-clearing framework under international supervision, and the escort fee corridor is dismantled. The ceasefire formally holds. U.S. forces begin a gradual drawdown. Probability possible, but requires Iranian leadership to accept significant strategic loss with nothing guaranteed in return. Scenario 2. Prolonged standoff. Neither side escalates militarily. The Strait remains partially mined. Global energy markets stay volatile. Iran collects escort fees. The U.S. maintains its force presence indefinitely and applies maximum economic pressure. This is the most likely near-term outcome, and the most dangerous one, because standoffs eventually break, and not always cleanly. Scenario 3. Resumption of hostilities. A mine detonates under a tanker. An IRGC fast attack boat is engaged. A U.S. aircraft is targeted by Iranian coastal defense. Any one of those triggers could pull both sides back into active combat, with a force already in position that is larger and more capable than what opened the conflict. Iran still has one card left to play, and it has nothing to do with the Navy. It involves a target Washington has refused to name publicly, one that, if activated, changes the entire geometry of this conflict overnight. That briefing is next. Subscribe to the Madsen Brief so you don't miss it. And if this breakdown was useful, share it. Most people following this story are only getting half the picture. We'll have the rest for you soon.